One thing housing providers never want to deal with is early lease terminations. But the truth is, life circumstances change, and it is inevitable that somewhere down the road you'll have to face an early lease termination. The more important thing is to educate yourself on why it happens and to be adequately prepared for it when it does happen. By being well prepared, it's also possible to even prevent early lease termination altogether. Today, I'm going to talk about 8 reasons for early lease termination and 4 ways to mitigate early lease termination. So, first, let's talk 8 reasons for early lease termination. Number 1 is divorce. Unexpected life events such as divorce can be a valid reason for someone to terminate their lease agreement early. In a case such as divorce, allowing an early lease termination can save you more time and money than an eviction. If accommodations are not provided in these circumstances, then the tenants may take out their frustrations on you, your reputation, or even worse, your property. Number 2 is illness. Illness is another unexpected life event that may require tenants to find accommodations elsewhere. Being sensitive to their untimely circumstances and open to allowing them to terminate their lease early is something you must consider as a housing provider. Number 3 is job transfer. Job transfers are also a common reason for tenants to terminate their leases early. Some may not know if or when a job transfer will be in their future. Number 4 is active duty military. According to the War and National Service Members Civil Relief Act, tenants are permitted to break their lease early if they're going into active military duty in one of many services. In these cases, tenants are required to give 30 days notice of early termination, after which they aren't obligated to make any more rent payments. This includes NOAA Corps, National Guard, Armed Forces more than 50 miles away, and Public Health Service. Number 5 is a new home purchase. While most tenants are aware of when a new home purchase is in the near future, sometimes this can come up unexpectedly. Be mindful of unexpected changes and such as a new home and offer your residents your congratulations. After all, you are a homeowner too. Number 6 is loss of employment. If your tenant is unable to pay their rent because of reduced hours, wages, or layoffs, it may be easier and cost you less money to allow them to terminate their lease early rather than going through the eviction process. Number 7 is lease agreement violations. Tenants aren't the only ones who can terminate a lease early. Housing providers can also terminate a lease early if the tenant violates any part of the lease agreement. The most common lease violation is failure to pay rent, which makes knowing how to evict a tenant who doesn't pay rent a skill every landlord must know how to do. Other lease violations include unauthorized tenants, unauthorized pets, noise violations, intentional damages. Number 8 is domestic violence. Residents involved in domestic violence, stalking, abuse, or sexual assault are all permitted to break their lease early, so long as they have the necessary paperwork. After providing the early lease termination notice, the tenant will not be required to pay any rent. Check your local and state laws for the time frame for when rent will no longer be due. Okay, 4 ways to mitigate early lease termination. So number 1 is you want to review the lease with your resident. Communication at the beginning of tenancy can oftentimes deter the tenants from even attempting to terminate their leases early. Tenants often don't read over their leases closely or even the house rules concerning serious matters like emergencies. It's always a good idea to go over the lease with your residents so that you know they've at least been informed of the important details. Number 2 is write an early lease termination clause. With your attorney's help, include an early lease termination clause in your rental agreement to ensure tenants are aware ahead of time what their obligations are when terminating their lease agreement early. Include items like minimum notice, termination fees, and required written notice. Number 3 is require an early lease termination contract. Once your resident agrees they will be terminating their lease agreement early, have them sign a contract stating they agree to all the terms, conditions, and fees associated with terminating their lease early. Don't forget to include things like the rekey fee, remarketing fee, and actual lease termination fees. And lastly is number 4, don't use the security deposit for rent. Early lease termination doesn't mean you should use a security deposit to pay any portion of rent or the early lease termination fees. Be very clear that the security deposit will be processed completely separate after the tenant moves out of the home. And none of the security deposit will ever be used for any of the lease termination fees. The bottom line is that early lease terminations can be messy and demand a lot from landlords. So knowing how to professionally handle them is yet another reason to use a property management company like NV Property Management. You can always ask us for valuable tips and extra resources to make the choice simple and painless. Give us a call today at 801-337-4337 or visit our website at nvpm.com. That's envypm.com, where you can easily view our 3-tiered pricing plan so you can choose the package that best fits you and your needs. Thanks for watching today's video. We will see you next time.